Okay, so we'll start with in the previous session we have seen what is a mass spectrometer, what are the parts of a mass spectrometer, and we saw the first two parts of your mass spectrometer, namely the inlet port as well as the ionization chamber. Okay, we'll move to the third part. It is called as analyzer. Okay, actually based on the type of analyzer that is employed, you will call different types of mass spectrometers. Okay, based on the type of analyzer. So we have four different types we are going to see. One is called as single focusing, or it is called also called as magnetic sector. Second one is double focusing mass spectrometer. Okay, and third one we are going to see is called as time of flight mass spectrometer, and the fourth one is we are going to see it's called as quadruple mass spectrometer. Okay, so based on these four types, you're going to call it as different types of mass spectrometers. So it is basically the analyzer that is going to differentiate in each of this mass spectrometer. You have different types of analyzer in single focusing, you have a different type in double focusing, a completely different principle in time of flight, then you have a quadruple mass spectrometer. Okay, we'll see one by one. So where the easiest one, we'll see the single focusing or our magnetic sector. Okay, before we actually see this, we will see a simple mechanism to understand this entire concept of focusing of your mass spectrometer. Okay, basically our idea is to separate the sample or the ions according to the mass to charge. We have to separate according to the mass to charge. To illustrate this example, we'll just take a ramp. Okay, we'll just take a ramp. Okay, I'm just going to use a ramp. Okay, a platform. I'm going to use a platform. Okay, here I have different scales. So this is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, say 5. I have different scales. Okay, I'm going to consider three balls. One is a simple ping pong ball. It's very soft and mass is very light. Okay, second I'm going to say consider a golf ball. Okay, third one I'm going to consider a snooker ball. Okay, so if you comparatively see, this has a very high mass, comparatively this has a very low mass. I'm choosing three balls. Okay, now I'll just let these balls fall. I'll let these three balls fall. Okay, so I'm pushing all the three balls. Okay, first I'm pushing this ball. This will actually fall and come out of here, 0. Again you push this ball. See what will change in all these three. First I will push this 1. I'll just put 1, which is ping pong ball. It's a ping pong ball, and this is a golf ball. Okay, this is a snooker ball. Okay, so this has high mass compared to this. So first you push this one. Okay, it's less mass. It will gradually come down and it will go out. It will have a score of 0. Again you push this ball. This will again come and it will have again a score of 0. And you push this one. This only thing that will change is how it moves in the ramp. The first one, it will free flow, it will take some time. The second one, because of its I mass, it will go somewhat speeder than this one. This will go speeder than this one, and this will go furthermore speeder than this particular one. Okay, whichever has I mass will go at a high speed, whichever has a less mass will go at a low speed. Okay, so this type of method, it's called as, here how will you be able to differentiate between the different mass? By using the time it takes to travel. Okay, this is the first method. Actually, this is the first method, time of flight. First we'll see this time of flight mass spectrometer. Okay, you remember it in previous, you have 3 balls according to 3 masses. So all the balls you try to flow it. This is a ramp. Okay, so first you push all the 3. If you push all the 3 at the same time, okay, the least one, so suppose the snooker ball, the ping pong ball will take more time to reach. Okay, whereas the golf ball, comparatively it will be at a higher speed because of its increased mass, and the snooker ball, which has a very high mass, will reach first. Okay, so this is the basic principle of your time of flight mass spectrometer. What you essentially do in your time of flight mass spectrometer is, you have a chamber. Okay, so initially you have the ions. That is, initially you converted the gas into ions. Okay, and these ions are pushed. Okay, these ions are pushed into the chamber. Okay, so all these ions that are entering, will have the same kinetic energy. They are pushed into the particular thing. Okay, it's just like your ramp. Remember the ramp? Okay, so we have the snooker. This is our ping pong ball, and say this is our golf ball, and this is our snooker ball. All the 3 balls are pushed. Okay, to push, here what we do is that we give the same kinetic energy to all the 3 masses. What will happen now? This ball will slowly travel. Okay, this is your detector. Which one will reach the thing first fast? Your red ball, nothing but the snooker ball, because of its high mass. Okay, so you take the reverse. In that case, because of the ramp, the heavy mass came out first. Okay, you here think it is a straight flow, it is not ramp. You are pushing all the 3. What will happen? Whoever is the lightest will come out first. The lighter will reach first. Okay, here the ramp effect is there. Because of that ramp effect, we got the heaviest to coming out first. But here it is a linear one. You just push all the 3 in the room. Okay, the lightest one will first reach the detector. Then the next mass. This will take some more time because of its mass to reach there. And the last one, heavier mass, will take some more time. Okay, so first your yellow will reach. So I will make a count for yellow. Yellow has reached. Then your green reaches the detector. I will make a peak for it. The green reached the detector. Then your red reaches. I will make a count for this. Okay, so this will be according to the mass to charge ratio. Okay, so this particular technique is called as time of flight mass spectrometer. Okay, typically the time taken is given as L by square root of 2V into E into the charge. Okay, into square root of m by z. The time taken is given as the length. Okay, L is the length it travels. Length is the length at which it travels. V is the velocity. E is the charge. M is the mass to charge ratio. This is the mass to charge ratio. Okay, this is the E. Okay, so V is the velocity, E is the kinetic energy. Okay, so you push it. Okay, you push it. Okay, and the lighter mass will travel fast. The heavier mass will take more time. The heavier mass will take more time. Okay, see, as the mass increases, the time also increases. Lighter mass will come fast. The heavier mass will take more time to come. Okay, so it is the initial velocity by which you push. Okay, so this is like an potential that you give an initial push. Okay, so this is called as the time of flight mass spectrometer. Okay, we'll see the next type. You again take the same example of the ramp. I'll take the same example of the ramp. Okay, I have the same 3 balls. I'll just make the ramp like this. This is my ramp. Okay, I'll take the same 3 balls. So first one is a ping pong ball. Second one is a golf ball. Third one is our snooker ball. Okay, now what we are going to do is that here I am going to have a dryer, blower. You can just think of a blower. I am using a blower. Okay, which blows air out. I am thinking of a blower. Okay, so here it is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, say 5. Okay, now I am having a blower here. You think what will happen? First, this yellow ball will come. This is having less mass. What will happen to the less mass? Because of the less mass, here initially didn't appear any force. Now you are giving a force. Okay, because of this force, what will happen? This will actually drift. This will actually drift. Okay, so say for the yellow ball, the score will be 5. For the yellow ball, the score will be 5 because of this force you have given. It has drifted. Okay, you are giving the same energy. You are pushing all the 3 balls at the same time. What will happen? This has less weight, so it will be more effect due to this blower. So it will move to the farther end. Whether this one is comparatively bigger mass than your ping pong ball. So what will happen to this particular thing? It will be deflected light. Okay, it will be deflected slightly. Comparative to your ping pong ball, this will be deflected slightly. So say this will be having a score of 3. Okay, now the third ball comes into picture. This has a very high mass, so it will have only very less deflection. It will have only very less deflection. Okay, so I can just give a score of say 1. Okay, now we have categorized the different ions. Okay, in the previous case we didn't have this particular blower. We just push them inside the chamber. It is allowed to freely flow. Now when it is allowed to freely flow, the lighter one came out fast, the heavier one came out last. Now what we do is that we use a force. Okay, we use a force. This force here, it is called as, this particular method is called as single focusing. Single focusing. Okay, this single focusing is nothing but what you are going to do is you are going to use a magnet. We are going to use a magnet. Okay, so this blower is going to be replaced by a magnet. So what you do is that you use a magnet to move it away from the place. Okay, then according to its mass, it will undergo deflection. The heavier mass will undergo least deflection, the lower mass will undergo maximum deflection. So from the output you will be able to collect, will be able to separate according to their mass to charge. Okay, that's the basic principle of single focusing mass spectrometer. We'll see with the instrument. Okay, so your single focusing mass spectrometers looks something like this. Okay, it basically consists of I'll just okay, basically we are trying to have a device, inlet device, which is going to allow your mass in gas phase. So here it is converted into ion. Say this is your inlet, this is your ionization chamber. So here you have the ions. Okay, all the ions are coming out. Okay, first thing what you do is that the ions are coming as such. The ions are coming out as such. Okay, what we'll do is that we try to do the focusing by means of a tube. Okay, here we keep a magnet. Here we keep a magnet. Okay, I just put this as magnet. This is a magnet. Okay, because of this magnet, this will actually take a curved path. Your ions will take a curved path. Okay, you remember the blower? You remember the blower in our last example? So the blower purpose is served by this magnet. The blower purpose is served by its magnet. Okay, we'll see step by step what happens. Fine. So first the ions are accelerated. It moves into the focusing magnet. It moves into the focusing magnet. Okay, initially you will be applying some, because you need to push the balls. You remember it? You need to push the balls. You need to push the balls. So you need to apply an energy. Okay, you need to apply an energy initially. Okay, so I'll just put that energy as, say, the initial kinetic energy of mv square is equal to Z into V. Okay, so Z essentially is the charge of the ion. V is the voltage that we are applying, the voltage that we require to push. Okay, so this is the mass of that particular ion, and this is the velocity, small v is the velocity. Okay, so what you are first doing, you are first pushing the ions inside this particular magnetic chamber. You are just pushing. Okay, it's similar to that of your you are pushing your different atoms into the pane. Okay, into this particular ramp. Okay, that particular part is achieved here. You are pushing the ions, so all will have the same kinetic energy of mv square equal to zv, where m is the mass, v is the velocity, capital V is the voltage that you are applying to push. Okay, and z is the charge. Okay, now what happens? As they enter the magnet, it will undergo a circular path. It will undergo a circular path, which may be either 60 degree or 90 degree or 120 degree. Okay, it will undergo a circular path. So the radius of curvature is given as mv by z into b. mv by z into b, where r is called as the radius of curvature. The radius of curvature, it depends upon the mass, applied voltage, the velocity, it's small v, velocity, z is the charge, b is the applied magnetic field strength. You remember the magnet, on either side you have the magnet. Okay, so this magnetic field is going to influence its radius of curvature. Okay, if we use, this is our second equation, this is our first equation. If you use these two equations together, I will come to an equation of mass to charge is equal to b square r square by 2V. M by Z is equal to B square R square by 2V. That is, the mass to charge ratio is dependent on the magnetic field intensity, radius of curvature, and the applied voltage. Okay, this is a V, this is capital V. B square R square by 2V. Okay, what we necessarily do is keep this voltage V constant, keep this radius of curvature constant. We change the magnetic field intensity to collect different mass by charge. What we want to do, I will just again take another one. Okay, see, remember, this is your mass inlet ions that are coming in, okay, a chamber. From here you are pushing the ions into this circular chamber. This R is already fixed, the radius of curvature is fixed, okay, and here you have your magnet, okay. The initial velocity is also fixed, initial V voltage that you apply is also fixed. You push all the ions, you remember, in our normal spectroscopy technique, spectrometry technique, okay, to make your ions, to make your beam, whatever emitted beam, to strike your detector, what we did, we had something called a prism or a diffraction grating, okay. So when the light beam falls on the prism, it is getting splitted into different parts, okay. Here you have a exit slit. We actually changed this prism table, we rotated this prism table, thereby only a particular light will enter your exit slit. Remember it, only a particular wavelength of light will emit via your exit slit and it will fall on your detector. In a similar manner, here I want to collect a particular mass to charge. Here I want to collect a particular mass to charge. To here, this end of the tube, I have a detector. Okay, the detector is nothing but similar to that of your score. This is your detector. Similar to that of your detector, you have the scoring is equivalent to that of your detector, okay. So this detector we have to collect, so we have to get different mass to charge. So as per this equation, you are keeping your R constant and V constant, that is the initial push is constant, the radius of curvature is constant. Only thing that is going to change is the magnetic field intensity. So as you change your magnetic field intensity, only a particular mass to charge ratio ion will come out of the detector, will come out of this tube and reach your detector, okay. So you are categorizing the different mass to charge ratio by changing the magnetic field intensity. Similar to that, you rotated your prism table to take out different wavelength of light through the exit slit. Here, to take out different atoms of different mass to charge ratio, you change the magnetic field intensity. This magnetic intensity is changed. For a particular magnetic field intensity, a particular mass to charge alone will come out. All other things will collide with the magnet. It will not come out. Of the tube. It will get attached to the tubes. Only a particular mass to charge will come out, that will be detected by your detector. So suppose initially 15 comes out, okay, then you change your magnetic field intense. So for this particular, say 25 comes out, then again you change your magnetic field, say for that 12 comes out. Now you have categorized the ions according to their mass to charge ratio, okay. So this principle is called as single focusing mass spectroscopy. Single focusing mass spectroscopy. What you do? Use a magnetic field to focus it. Use a magnetic field to focus it. Okay. So that way you will be able to get your output. So you will be able to differentiate between different ions. This is called as single focusing mass spectrometer. Okay. Third method is called as double focusing. You'll see what is double focusing. So what we did it in single focusing. First, you remember the example, the ramp. You first allow all the 3 balls to fall. Based on their mass, they moved. That is your time of flight method. Second method, what you did, you just allowed, you used a blower and allowed it to deflect. That is your magnet you used for focusing. That's called as single focusing. Okay, here in this example, actually the ramp plays a vital role. This ramp, no, this plays a vital role because it is going to facilitate the motion of that particular balls. This ramp actually facilitates the motion of the balls. Okay, without the ramp, you think of this situation, it will be very difficult. Okay, so essentially with the ramp you call it as a double focusing. If you don't have the ramp at all, think of it as a flat surface. Think of it as a flat surface. You have the 3 balls. One is our yellow colored, you have a green colored, and you add the red color. Red color is the highest mass. In the first experiment, what we did, we just pushed all the balls. So the lightest one came out. The second case, you used a blower in the path. You used a blower in the path. Thereby, the lighter one got deflected more, the heavier one got deflected less, and then it reached the detector. Okay. Now, but what happens here is that it will take more time for the ions to travel. Okay. So, how the effect is made still more good, because here initially the ions are with their own kinetic energy. You are pushing it, but still according to their mass it will move. To make the resolution further, that is more amount of ions to respond, the ramp actually played a very important role. The ramp actually played a very important role to make the balls fall. Okay. Apart from your blower, you also add the effect of the ramp that is coming into picture. That is called as double focusing. That is called as double focusing. Okay. What we did here is, what we practically do in double focusing is, before we actually go into the magnetic sector, okay, we initially apply electrostatic field. Okay, so initially your ions are coming out. Okay, accelerated ions. Before you accelerate it, you pass it through an electrostatic analyzer. Electrostatic analyzer. Okay, this particular electrostatic analyzer, it is like giving extra energy to your ions. It's like giving a boost. Okay, so the velocity that you apply, it's like someone is pushing from outside, so that you have to travel at the same speed. Okay, this is something like increasing the internal energy. It like boosting the confidence of a person. You can just think of as boosting the confidence of the person. Okay, you can just put it, the entire scenario, to a life. Okay, So they are allowed to travel. Different persons are there. So A person, B person, C person is there. Okay, they are allowed to travel their life path. Okay, so what we try to do is that we take the concept of a god, initially say some force, god or some force which gives them equal amount of wealth, say equal amount of wealth to travel. Okay, or you can just take the government, it gives wealth for all the 3% A, B, C to travel. Okay, so they travel and they will finally reach their destination. Okay, this is like the first two methods. The first method, that is time of flight. Now what we do is that we give an extra push. Okay, you give some more wealth at some point of time, or you give some sort of skills. Okay, so that will actually push the person. This is called as single focusing. Instead of giving this, again, this all depends upon how much the person is motivated. If the person is very less motivated, even if you give lot of wealth and if you give lot of other factors, you will never reach the target. Okay, now to increase the resolution here is more people reaching the detector. You increase the self-confidence of this person. You boost the self-confidence of this person. Okay, then you allow them to travel. Okay, you do initial counseling to these people, make the mind clear, remove their mental hurdles, then allow the travel. So more people will be able to reach the detector. That is the purpose of this electrostatic analyzer. It is like boosting the confidence. You initially use an electrostatic analyzer, then it will flow into your magnetic part. Then it will actually go into your magnetic sector. So this initial boost, will actually improve the resolution of your mass spectrometer. It will improve your resolution of your mass spectrometer. This is called as double focusing mass spectrometer. Why we are using double focusing? To increase the resolution. That is the number of ions that are reaching the detector. To increase it, initially you give a boost by using an electrostatic analyzer. Initially you give a boost and then you allow it to flow through the magnetic sector. Thereby more ions will reach the detector. That is the underlying principle of double focusing mass spectrometer. Okay, so double focusing mass spectrometer is essentially to increase the resolution. You are actually boosting it initially by using an electrostatic analyzer. Thereby it travels further one more step to reach the destination. Okay, so this is called as double focusing mass spectrometer. Okay, so the next method we'll see it later. So as of now we have seen three methods. One is time of flight, second one is single focusing, third one is double focusing. In time of flight, based on their mass, you push all the ions based on their mass. Least mass will reach fast, heavier mass will take more time. In single focusing, apart from the normal pushing, you also use a magnetic field. So as you change the magnetic field, okay, so m by z is equal to b square r square by 2v. Keeping v and r constant, by changing the magnetic field, you will be able to differentiate between different mass to charge. But again, the initial kinetic energy will be very less. To increase the initial kinetic energy in double focusing, in addition with your magnetic field, you use an electrostatic analyzer. because of this additional electrostatic analyzer, more ions will reach your detector, thereby it will increase the resolution of your detector. That is the aim of the increasing the resolution is your aim of your double focusing mass spectrometer. Okay, that's what we have seen in this class. Thank you.